Uh, Sure, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Leading Age, for this opportunity. This topic is very dear to my heart, and I've been working with our residents and a couple of people for a little over a year now, and I am very happy for this opportunity to share this. My name is Belinda Degboe. I'm the Wellbeing Director here at Asbury in Gettysburg, Maryland. Um, so a lot of the things I'm going to share today is not rocket science. That is what I like about this uh combating or fight against loneliness, because these are just simple things I believe some of us are doing already. And I know Sarah had mentioned it, that I want this to be a little bit interactive. So please, let's all talk about this, because this is something that we all have to do together. So just a little more about me. And you will see why this is important to me, because I feel like intrinsically, like we've all been created for connection. So I am originally from Ghana in West Africa, and that is me, is definitely me. I think my mom said I was about 4.5, 5 years old. And that is my family, my husband of 24 years, my son and my daughter. And then my big family, my siblings of 7, and connecting wherever I find myself is very, very important to me. So below the picture you see, I don't have any picture of our residents, but that is my team, just a part of our Asbury team that I work with, because I feel like there is a need for connection everywhere. So that is a snapshot of who I am. And why this is important to me is loneliness and isolation, as we will see in today's chat and discussion. It can easily sneak up on you. Like, it's not just, it's more than a bad feeling. And these individuals, whether it's your nuclear family, your extended family, or your work family, it's or your community where you live in, it's important to get an understanding how crucial it is for you to get connected. So let's take a look at Sarah will go to the breakout room soon, but what I want us to think through now, you know a little bit about me. Coming here, you've never seen me. Now, I hope that you all feel like you know me a little bit more. What I want you to do when you go into your breakout room is just look at this simple question: where is my happy place? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? And describe it to the people in your break room. I'm hoping will be about 3, 4, and just it will be short, between 3, 5 minutes. But keep in mind, whilst you talk about this, how your feeling is like when you are talking about your happy place. And then we'll be back and continue with the presentation. So thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. Give me just a minute.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. I'll open up 6 rooms. Okay. Everybody should get a link to join a breakout room. And again, you're discussing, where is your happy place? What does it look like, sound like, smell like? Melinda, you should have the option to be able to jump in
Join
if you would
any.
like.
Can I join any?
I think so.
Okay, I'm going to join the one that is 3.
All right, Belinda, I think people are on
Are
their
we
way
all
back.
back?
Yep, it looks like we still have about 5 seconds for everyone to rejoin us.
Oh, okay. Hey, whilst we wait for everybody, how did that conversation go?
Feel free to unmute, or you can also post in the chat as well.
Okay. I think it went well, and I think that we all had very similar, there was one place that was similar for all of us, which I think is common, and that would be home. So that's, if you can't be safe and feel good at home, that's not so good. So that was a common theme. And of course, our families and residents.
Good. Did anybody feel like, oh, I came here without knowing anybody, but I feel a little bit connected with somebody?
Definitely.
Any other thoughts? Any particular feeling once you started talking about your happy place?
Well, of course, thinking about it and bringing your mind to it is going to elicit some happiness. So I'm sure the neurochemicals in the brain start firing up a little bit at the happy thought. And by the way, you have a beautiful family.
Oh, thank you. I like what you said. Talking about it elicits some happy feeling. Just that remembrance, sharing it with somebody, because I think that thought was already in your head. And those of us who are in the office, probably there is something going on. But once you started talking about it, so the girls in the picture are my girlfriends. Hectic life with everybody's job, but we tried to get away. So we were away at the weekend together. And when we are together, we fool around a lot. We are not like the high-powered, super serious mom or work or anything. So that is my happy place when I'm with those girls, and just thinking about sharing that with you. So Karen, I could relate with what you are sharing. I wanted us to do this exercise so that we'll keep in mind when we are talking with our community on social connection and how we can use that to combat loneliness. We will remember how we ourselves, we felt, even talking to strangers that we don't know, how that feeling is. Just so that we'll remember to help us to support the people we serve, get an understanding of why it is important for them to connect, why it is important for them to come out of their buildings and connect. Because I believe that you hear me say this in the next couple of minutes that we are going to be together, that humans are wired for social connection, but we've become more isolated over time. And the pandemic did not help. And after we came out of the pandemic, the isolation over time, it's just getting worse and worse. And there is a need to put some effort of intentionality and consistency into this effort of bringing us back to this natural humans being wired for social connection. So let's listen to the man who really pushed the fire under me to start doing this. And we'll continue. Sarah, the sound is not working.
Yeah, can't hear him.
You can't hear him? Okay, hold on 1 second. Let's try it now.
Individual and societal health.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. Research shows that loneliness and isolation are associated with a greater risk of heart disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. In fact, lacking connection can increase the risk of premature death to levels comparable to smoking daily. Loneliness and social isolation are also far more common than we might realize. About 1 in 2 American adults report experiencing loneliness. Everyone can be impacted across all ages, socioeconomic conditions, and geographies. This widespread disconnection presents profound threats to our health and well-being. Social connection is as fundamental to our mental and physical health as food, water, and sleep, and it affects our performance and productivity at work, school, and in our communities. Now is the time to invest in building social connection. This first ever Surgeon General's advisory on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation shows us how. The keys to connection are simple. Answer a phone call from a friend. Invite someone over to share a meal. Listen and be present during conversation. Seek out opportunities to serve others. These steps may seem small, but they're extraordinarily powerful. By strengthening our relationships, we can improve our heart and brain health, reduce our risk of diabetes and high blood pressure, boost our immune systems, and lower our risk of depression. We can build lives and communities that are healthier and happier, and we can ensure our country and the world are better poised than ever to take on the challenges that lie ahead. Visit surgeongeneral.gov/connection to learn more.
Thank you, Sarah, for showing that. Next slide, please. That's okay. So I thought you should hear it from the Surgeon General because that is really what lights the fire under me. So right after the pandemic, right, you all know how that went down. We realized, my team and I realized that attendance to classes, attendance to events had really gone down, and we were just wondering what was going on. So this was in 2022, towards the end of 2022. So in January of 2023, we decided to do campus-wide. We have a little under 900 residents in our independence living. So we decided to do a quality of life assessment and also to just do senior fitness tests for everybody. So whilst the process of that, what we identified was more than about 48% to 50% of our residents have really stopped attending events. And now we have the data to prove it. So then as a team, we started thinking, what are we going to do? How can we get these people out? So I started looking a little bit into loneliness and stuff like that to get a better understanding. So this brings me to the textbook definition of loneliness, which is the state of distress or discomfort that results when one perceives a gap between one's desire to socially connect. So it's not that they don't want to and what they actually experience. So people have been in their house for a whole year and now they don't want to come out. So whilst we were pondering about that as to what to do, the Surgeon General came out with this report. And between the research from my team, what we found out about our residents and his report, I remembered walking into my house, watching him on TV, the breaking news. And then I downloaded the PDF, it's about 90-something page. And I started just going through to see what this is all about because it just fits into exactly the challenge that. And then I got a deeper, getting more and more into the fact that people could actually be in a group and still feel lonely and isolated. So this is actually what led us into getting a better understanding and helping our residents. And you will see from the additional slides as we talk, some of the things that we did. The slides that are coming up, I would rush through them. I apologize, but I really wanted to share some of this with you, but I want us to get to some of the things that we did. So these are some of the types of loneliness that had been identified. So there is emotional loneliness, which is the absence of a meaningful relationship. There is social loneliness. That is, I always say that people's perception is their reality, right? That is a perceived deficit in the quality of social connections. And then there is the existential loneliness. And it was amazing how that was prevalent among our residents once we got a better understanding. That is the feeling of a fundamental separateness from others and the wider world. So people could be in the dining, eating places with a lot of other residents, but they still feel lonely. Why? Because they are having hearing loss. They can't hear. So they are there, but they feel fundamentally separate from others. So it is very important once you go into combating loneliness for us to get this understanding. Next slide, please. So I allude to, yeah, I agree with you. Somebody just put something in the chat and I got distracted with it. I completely agree with you. So I alluded to that a little bit. So just like any health related issues, everybody one time or the other suffers from loneliness, but there are some people in our community who will find out that are at more risk. And these are some of the people. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to bring more attention to, because of the population we serve, some of the people who are really, really at risk are our residents or our community members who have experienced unexpected isolation due to sudden illness of a loved one, their primary caregivers of their loved one, separation from their families, loss of mobility, because they can't move like they used to, worsening vision and hearing loss. I come to the dining or I go to the restaurants and I can't hear. What is the point? So these are the people that we have to keep at the back of our mind that are at more risk than others. Next slide, please. So, and the Surgeon General did mention it, but it's like a ripple effect. Once you start isolating, once you are removing yourself, it leads to some of all those higher risk health factors. People start abusing medications and alcohol, and then brain health issues starts coming in. Alzheimer's, disease progression, there is tons of research out there. Cardiovascular diseases, of course, you are isolating, you are by yourself, you are not moving, you are eating, you get depressed, you get obese, suicidal thoughts coming, it's just cascade. So depression, that is why I said from the beginning, loneliness, I said from the beginning, is just not a bad feeling. This can cascade into something else if it's not resolved. That is why I feel like all of us can do something and bit by bit get the people we serve, ourselves, our loved ones out of this. And next slide. So this slides, I would encourage you to take a look at them, what other countries are doing, but I also want you to understand that this is not only an American problem, this is actually a worldwide problem, because when I found out that WHO has actually made this loneliness a health priority, and in the US, 1 in every 2 adults say they are lonely. But in the world, so our case is a little worse than the entire developed world. It's 1 out of every 4 adults. But for younger adults and teenagers, it's 5 out of 15. And this is just data that I think you should know going into your communities, tackling this, so that you would see what we are really, really dealing with. So these are just some of the approaches some countries are doing. Sarah is going to share this slide so that you will see. If you have any questions, you can shoot me an email, but I thought I should also share some of this so that we will see that this is a world problem. This is not an American problem. Our issue in America is more because 1 out of every 2 people, 1 person is lonely. or isolated. So ours look bigger, but it's a world problem. So this is what is being done in the UK to combat loneliness. We have what is being done in Japan to combat loneliness. This is their strategy. They call it Japan's 4 pillars to tackle loneliness and isolation. And so you can read a little bit more about them, because when you get into the details of what they are doing, it gives you some ideas of some of the things that you can do in your community as well. So the summary of the Surgeon General's report for us in the US, the report that came out, I told you it's a 90 plus page report, but the summary of it is about half of our population in the US is experiencing loneliness, is dealing with loneliness and isolation. And the sad part is that loneliness and isolation as a health challenge is worse than all the other health challenges that are in the country. It's worse than smoking. It's worse than diabetes. Is worse than obesity. Look, obesity is 41.9% on the health challenges scale. And loneliness and isolation is worse than that. So when I talk about this, I'm like, this is not to like blowing this out of proportion. But when you look at the data, it's just make it really, really crucial and important that we all take the simplest effort, the simplest step that we can take to solve this, because despite this high prevalence, less than 20% of individuals in the US think that they can get help or there is a solution to it. So it's important for us to get an understanding of it. And for 2024, the data is showing that 59% of Americans don't have best friends, and only 12% say they feel they have close friends at all. That is how bad the statistics is. And 52% of Americans report feeling lonely, whilst 47% report their relationship with others are not meaningful. And for those of us in the DC area, Las Vegas, this is a fun fact that I think we should just know. I thought it was funny. Las Vegas, Washington, DC, and Denver are the 3 loneliest cities in the US, with statistics showing that loneliness is 3 times more above the national average. So now, to the fun fact of what we are doing here at Asbury. So when the Surgeon General came out with this report, I jokingly always say that this is the first time the government had identified a problem and they've given us a solution. So they identify all these challenges with loneliness, the risk factors, the health implications, the cascading, all that. And then they came out with 6 pillars, a solution to how we can solve this. And I'm not trying to downplay all the 6 pillars. The additional documents that Sarah will send, you can go through the 5 pillars, the strengthening social infrastructure, enacting pro-connection public policies, mobilizing the health sector to be more involved, deepening our knowledge about loneliness and isolation. What I think is a low-hanging fruit that everybody, you and I, can leave this discussion today and start doing, which was what we did here at Asbury, is creating the culture of connection. Going back to that, saying that we human beings were wired for social connection, but we've become more isolated. So that 6th pillar on the Surgeon General's solution, I feel is something that everybody can do. You can do in your homes, you can do in your workplace, you can do in your neighborhoods. You can cultivate a culture of connection. So what that breaks down to is simply going back to that value that we were taught as children when we were all growing up, values of kindness, respect, service, and commitment to one another. Everybody can do that, right? It's counterintuitive. We all grew up with it, but civility is lost on all of us. And think about it this way. Simply doing an act of kindness or encouraging, like at Asbury, when we started doing this, what we did was that we went from neighborhood to neighborhood, presented this challenge to them, and we said, this is what we are going to do. We have 8 neighborhoods at Asbury. So this is what we are going to do. How do you create this culture of connection in your neighborhood? So sending it to them, your neighbor that is stuck in his room that has not been coming out, somebody on your floor that you've not seen for a while. How do you reach out to that person? So once we started having this conversation about the 6th pillar, we said, okay, how do we model this? We've talked about it in our neighborhood. How do we model it? You start doing it in your neighborhood, and then you start by sending a kind note or a welcome note, or talk to that person who is sitting by themselves at the dining table alone. And then once they started doing that, let's go back to that slide, Sarah. Yeah, once they started doing that, we encourage them to expand it. Because it starts from the cultivation, we model it, and then we expand it. And by the time we realize, everybody is talking about this. Everybody is talking about the social isolation, social connection. And, you know, once you start talking about something, that ripple effect, the same negative ripple effect, it has its positive ripple effect as well. And it just started catching on. So I'm going to skip the next slide, Sarah, because it's just an explanation of what social connection is. It's a definition, so everybody can read that when you send the slide. So some of the advantages of when we started doing it, what we started realizing is that residents started testifying of the relief that they started feeling, and obviously the mental health improvement. We've not done any empirical data collection yet, but you can just see the difference. I put longevity there because we've been talking about intentional longevity and people are living longer, but residents started coming out and they're having this conversation, and it just feeding into the same data that is out there about how people are living longer. And with this social connection, of course, they are not going to be stuck in their room now and then get deteriorated. And at their age, you can even see the happiness index. Right now, it's personal growth, but you can see. And then the support system that is being developed, more community engagement, and then there is more diversity and inclusion. People who are in the LGBTQ community in our community felt more open to come out, you know, and talk with other people. So those are just some of the advantages that we and the benefits that we have seen in our community. Next slide, please. I put this in because something came up fun when we started doing this. These are just type of social connections, but one of the fun things that came out and the stories that I heard that I thought it was crucial to share with you all is the romantic relationships. So we had a resident that I thought this was just cool, that lost the husband. So she was isolating. And then another resident lost the wife. They are in 2 different neighborhoods, and both of them were isolating. And to just comfort themselves, they both decided to get a dog. Well, we have a dog park at Asbury. So they would take their dogs. They were not going to a lot of places. They would take their dogs to the dog park. And then the dogs started playing together and they started talking. And one thing led to another, and they are now married. And they were married here on our campus. Those two individuals could have been isolating in their rooms and not have any solution, but just coming out to the dog park, social connection. Humans are wired for social connection. And so, yes, romantic relationships do come out of getting out and talking to people. And there could also be online communities. People are in New Jersey now, people are in Missouri, we are all here in Maryland, but here we are talking. So, and another place that people could meet is spiritual communities, churches, synagogues, and all those places. So, and then support groups. So those are just some of the places that you could connect. And that is what we have found out, that once we started beating this drumbeat of social connection, it's kept picking up. And as you can see, these are things that you can easily encourage your community members to participate in or get involved in. Next slide, please. So I have run through a lot, share some of the things that we have done. But my question to you, or what I want you to take away from this, is what can you do? What can you help your neighbors do? And we've done a lot of things here at Asbury, but one of the simple things that we did was just encouraging residents. And you can try this yourself before you expand it to your neighborhood and your communities and all that. You can try it with your kids. We encourage our residents to do simple acts like expressing gratitude, offer to support somebody, ask for help if you need it. 3 simple things. How do you express gratitude? Call, text, send a note, tell somebody that you are grateful they are in your life. Compliment someone who deserves recognition. Thank somebody for specific time they helped you on your floor, in your neighborhood, the associates that serve you. And they are simple things, but as we started encouraging them to do that, it started working. Offer support, check in with someone, help them to know you are there. Offer to help someone with daily tasks, volunteering somewhere. We encourage our residents to do all that. And this is the difficult one because this is something that I personally had to work on. Ask for or accept help. People don't want to ask for help. They don't want to accept help. So when there is something going on within, they are just stuck in their room. How can we help them? We started encouraging our residents to do that. If you need a ride, as simple as coming to the dining, call transportation. Call your neighbor to help you with something. Tell a loved one how they can support you. So ask for help. So that is how we encourage our residents to do it. But we didn't only put this out there to them. Next slide, Sarah. And this is your big takeaway for something tangible that you can implement. And we didn't come out with it. So the link is there. Sarah will send the information. The Surgeon General started this last year during the holidays. It says 5 for 5 Connect Challenge. What it is that, so we just pull it out. I don't know whether you all can see. We just pulled it out. Can you see what I'm holding up?
Yes, we can see it.
You can see it?
Yep.
Okay. So it's the same thing. We made it into a card. So what we did was that we pulled this 5 for 5 Connect Challenge, and we challenged our residents to commit to pick this card, pick 5 consecutive days that they can do this challenge either encourage somebody, offer to help somebody, do some gratitude act, offer to help somebody, or actually ask for help yourself. So do this 5 consecutive days. Once you do it, we at the back of this card, we show them how they can do it, how they can track it. And once they track it, they are supposed to tag 3 of their friends. So that is where you see that line, and you will have all this. You don't have to do it the same way. You know your community, you know your neighborhood, and then tag somebody. And we put a prize on it. And people were actively doing it. You know what that did? It pulled them out of their homes. They started talking about it. So this is something simple that you can do, that we are made to connect challenge. You can do it with your neighbors. You can do it with your residents. You can do it if you're not in a residential living like what we have here, like in a CCRC. This is very simple. Everybody can do it. 5 for 5 Connect Challenge, and you will be amazed the difference that this simple thing like will do in our residents' life. So I wanted to share that with you so that you have a solid takeaway, something that you can easily implement. I am sure some of you are doing some things on loneliness and isolation, but I can't overstate the fact that there is something the Surgeon General said. He said that if we fail to I want to paraphrase it, but let me just read it. If we fail to do what we have to do, take a step, we will pay an increasing price in the form of our individual and collective health and well-being. And we will continue to splinter and divide until we can no longer stand as a community or a country. 1 out of 2 Americans say they feel lonely. And the 2 group of people that are worse impact is the population we serve, the older adults and teenagers. That is why this is crucially important to me. And I was sharing with Sarah that I was forced to take a break from work and rest because I had a bad accident. And when everybody leaves home and I'm by myself in bed and I can't move and I can't do anything, and this is very recent, this issue of being really lonely and isolated became really real to me. So now what I've been talking about for the past 1.5 years, trying to encourage residents to come out, try to encourage people to really help for us to work together to combat this loneliness and isolation, became so real to me. And I was like, man, this can really drive you crazy. I can imagine how an 85-year-old or a 75-year-old who can't hear, who starts isolating, how it can go downhill so quickly. And instead of living longer, one thing leads to another and they go down and down. So everybody, all of us can do something. It's social connection, reduce risks of premature mortality, and it can predict better physical and mental health outcomes. So there is data out there to prove all that. So I hope we will all leave this space and continue. I know already you may be doing some things in your community, but take this and spread it further and further so that together we can all help solve this problem. So I think next slide, I think that's the last slide, right, Sarah? Okay, that's it. The 5 for 5 connection is the end, and no, just the question slide. We are not in person, so we won't do prizes. I like to do prizes if I'm in person. We are not in person, so we won't do prizes. So any questions, any thoughts? I know it's a lot of information. I just want to thank you all so much for the opportunity to share this. It's very important to me, and I cannot overstate the significance of social connection And this is a core part of our human experience, and it's very central to all of us, our existence. So it's important that we all work together. And I hope that this had been a little bit helpful to you. Any questions or thoughts?